All right, welcome everybody to this episode of the Navigating Now virtual roundtable series. I am Anthony Ewing with Thoughtium. We are here every week, Thursday at 3 p.m. Central, and our goal is to bring you leaders with new perspectives each week on how we are all navigating now. And we've got another incredible leader at the table today who we'll introduce in just a moment. But I wanted to make sure that I cover off on housekeeping items. First and foremost, we want to welcome everybody to this show, whether you're tuning in live or after the event. We want to welcome those folks who join us via YouTube, Facebook, and particularly we want to welcome our LinkedIn community. You know, we love our LinkedIn community. It's typically the community that tunes in the most and is more interactive with the content. So we invite you all to say hello. Ask any questions that you might have in the comments or send us an email, info@thoughtium.com. So we are 54 weeks into our Navigating Now virtual roundtable series, and the list of incredible leaders that have stepped up and offered their perspective is growing. And I'm really excited about today's guest because Matt Cimaglia is really at the forefront, I think, of what it takes to build a successful business in a 2021 world. And I say this because he's been proving this for years and years across a couple different industries. And today is all about new and innovative business models. And Matt comes to us with a real perspective on how to build a business today and how to scale a business. And we just love these talks. We love to get in the weeds, in the dirt with other business owners who are making decisions every day for the betterment of their company, for the betterment of their brand. And Matt has been in this work for quite some time. So Matt, welcome to the table and thanks so much for joining us today.
Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. The topic of today is really innovative business models. And I want to get into Third Summit and some of the incredible work that you and your team are doing. But we always love to start by getting to know, our guests at the table, because at the heart of every entrepreneur are really great stories. And oftentimes there's a really deep why in terms of, why you get up every day to do what you're doing. So Matt, I want to start with a question for us and our audience to get to know you a little bit better. Tell us a little bit about, as a child, what you thought you'd be doing at this point in your career, and how far off and different is that from what you're actually doing today?
It's interesting because I was very fortunate as a young age to have access to technology and also to have access to camera equipment when I was younger. And I always kind of blended the two in some ways. And I remember when I was in the fourth grade, I was part of the news program at our school. And what was so great about that is we did a live broadcast every day. And it was something that really, I think, shaped, where I'm at today and certainly had a huge, profound impact on my life. And there's actually a video clip of me. There was a local news outlet that did an interview on us and how we produced this program. And I had actually figured out a way to combine computer graphics at the time with our sort of switcher in our studio, and it was able to kind of cross the two together. And again, I at the time was really conflicted because I always loved computers and I always loved technology, but I also loved video. And I think that it wasn't until years later that I really figured out that I could actually blend the two together. And I think that was really cool. And that was really evident sort of in my middle school and high school years as nonlinear editing started to become sort of on the market. And I was able to sort of, leverage digital technology to put films together. I think that when I was a kid, I watched the Today Show a lot. That was one of those things that, I remember, different episodes and specifically how they had one about satellite technology and how they were able to broadcast from one side of the world and, get that signal to New York and then, get that out to the rest of the viewers. And I just thought that was super cool. And I always wanted to be a part of that. And lo and behold, when I graduated college, I applied for a sort of low-level editing position at the NBC affiliate in Orlando, Florida. They turned me down for a job, as did a lot of other companies, because I graduated pretty early. And at the time, I was able to get a job. And it was because I was applying for positions that I knew that I was really capable of handling. And, they just looked at me as a young kid. And so I created my first company then, and that was Cimaglia Productions, my last name. And, I really did it as a we, right? So I was 19, 20 years old. I needed a job and basically got to the point where I was starting to bid on contracts and ended up winning a couple really big contracts where I then, built my first office in Orlando on the back lot at Universal Studios. And what was really great about that is within about 6 months or so, I got a phone call from the Today Show, and they heard about me through some friends and through some other colleagues. And keep in mind, I was about 20 at this point, and they asked if I would come and try out as an editor in their Miami workspace that they had at the time. And I remember thinking about it as I was building my company, that I was like, do I, pass upon this opportunity and focus solely on my company, or do I, go and try and figure out how to do both? And that's what I ended up doing. And I tried out as an editor, and I cut my first Today Show story with a very seasoned producer. And the irony of that is she looked at me after the edit and she was like, well, how long have you worked here? Because I don't remember you being around. And I had to actually tell her, that was my first time ever editing for the Today Show. What was really great about that is it was something that I really truly had as a kid in my mind, that I wanted to work for NBC, for the network. And, I really followed my dream. I followed a lot of my passions and really got there.
That's incredible. It's interesting. We ask this question to a lot of folks, and typically their answer is something completely different in terms of what they wanted to be as a child as what they do today. But you ask them to drill down into some of their most high impact experience as a child, and typically what we find is that as adults, even when we're really engaged in our career, we're tapping into some of that like childhood wonderment. So I guess my follow-up question here is like, when you are at your best, and at this point it's really running Third Summit, your company, are you tapping into a little bit of that like childhood wonderment? Are you getting some of the same feedback and sensations as you had when you were in front of your first, low fidelity, video timeline on an old PC?
Absolutely. I think that's what drives me every day. I mean, I think that, I'm going to misquote this completely, but I want to say that I read something recently about Elon Musk that, he sort of looks at a problem and says, okay, well, how can we do it better? And, at the time when I was young, I saw the tools that I had at my disposal. And again, I was very fortunate growing up that when I looked at it, it's like, well, why couldn't I combine these things? And, why couldn't I put them together? And, back to elementary school, I think what really sealed the deal for me at the time is I wrote, edited and produced a little short film and with my classmates. And we ended up winning a really big competition and came in first place. And then I ended up winning another award. And that was like, again, in the fourth grade, I really remember being like, well, this is exactly what I want to do. Like I'm doing exactly what I love. And again, it's hard for me today because I've really taken a step back from the creative role that I used to like lead with at my old company. Sure. But I feel like it's a different type of creativity now. And it's, how do I formulate the business? Yes. How do I navigate the business? How do I navigate the landscape? I mean, if any, entrepreneur looks at the last year and what we've gone through with the pandemic, I mean, it's certainly been a year of the people that were the most creative are certainly the people that are still standing here today.
I couldn't agree with you more. I want to stick a little bit on this connection to your childhood, and then I promise our viewers we're going to get into what you do today. But again, I love kind of tapping into people's past as a way to understand how they are navigating, in your case, building businesses today. As a child, I remember days where I would go to garage sales and I would find old speaker equipment and old stereo receivers, and I would sneak them into my house and up into my room, and I would stage these speakers and this stereo equipment in a way that not only functioned well, but like also looked aesthetically beautiful. And there is there is work that I do today in terms of this content and this level of production that allows me to tap into a bit of that creativity. And it sounds like you'll always hold on to that. My question for you is, as a young creator, we'll call ourselves young creators back in those days. I always imagined a world where technology would be more advanced than what I could even imagine or what I could even potentially execute on. And I feel like today we're there, where no matter how creative I want to become, there is technology to support it. And 20 years ago, it was more so, how do we hack technology to meet some of the creative ideas that we have, whether that's putting a movie together or building a custom PC or putting together a production for your school. And I feel like today, in today's creator economy and creator culture, the technology is not only caught up, but it's almost, I feel like it's ahead of us to where we can do anything. And is that something that you experience, or something that you've been that you've been realizing as you step more into the production world?
A few stories come to mind. The first is I think that as an independent, and I think that as the technology that we have today is so advanced that independents can have access to the tools that were once owned by the one percenters, the major studios, the major networks, right? And I remember in high school, I was doing some interning at the local ABC affiliate in Palm Beach. And they would send me home with tapes sometimes and be like, your edit system at home is better than the one that we have here at our news station. And here I was, a high school student that had a better computer than they did at the affiliate. And again, I was sort of looking at it from that time period and being like, wow, like this is really amazing that I can do this, right? And they would air my content. Fast forward, I built my company, and it started out as a production company, and then I had to adapt and change as the years went on. And when I started it, it was a video production company, and we were handing things out on DVDs or VHS tapes. That's this was 2001, 2002 time period. Fast forward, just a couple years, and I was sitting in a meeting with one of my former clients at Allstate. And this was my first initial intro meeting to them, and big Chicago or Northbrook company. And I was with one of their chief communications officers, and he's like, "Hey, have you heard about this YouTube that everyone's talking about?" And at the time, it was kind of crazy to me because I was still a relatively small production company, and I was like, "Yeah, like we could definitely produce content for YouTube for you guys all day long." And we subsequently created that, and that was something that I feel has always been repetitive in all of my business, and even the business that I'm in now, is that it's like, to your comment, yeah, we have the technology and the wherewithal to do things today and where we're sitting, but it could also go so much further. And that's what we're really trying to achieve with Third Summit. Is we're not necessarily thinking about the problems that we have to tackle today, because I think that that's relatively taken care of with a lot of the different splintered off technologies that exist out there. I think it's really thinking through on a forward-facing idea set of how do we shift the mindset of people into almost thinking about what technology is going to be coming next.
Yeah, I think that's a great answer, and I'm curious to dive into that. But why don't we now fast forward to present day? Tell us a little bit about Third Summit, and tell us about your role in the growth, obviously the founding of, but the growth of Third Summit.
Yeah, I mean, after 15, 20 years of running my previous company and all of its success and growing it, I knew that I needed to. It's almost the whole cliche of like, you need to take all the bricks down in order to rebuild it. And that's kind of in some senses what I did, but more mentally in my sort of entrepreneur side of my body. And honestly, it was a real awakening. I would say even 6 or 7 years ago, in the sense that technology that once gave us that competitive edge as an agency was also becoming so readily available to people that you started to seeing groups and editors and production companies, kind of branch out, or their people were leaving, or a lot of my people would sort of ask if they could work from home. And this was at a time period when that just wasn't happening yet, right? And so I started thinking, okay, culturally, how can we get more into that? And the more and more I looked at it and I saw the writing on the wall with my clients at the time, I knew that I needed to really dismantle the company. So I sold it off and I broke away from that. And I consulted for a couple companies in the interim. And then about 3 years ago, I came up with what is the thesis behind Third Summit. And it's really, there's a lot of really great pieces of software that exist out there today, but they're so fragmented, meaning you have to log into one program to get access to something, or you have to log into another program to get access. They don't really speak to each other. And then when you go back to that sort of 1%er that I mentioned earlier, the major studios, they have the dollars to go and invest in tons of R&D on content management systems or migrating to the cloud, and they have massive contracts with AWS or Azure or IBM. And as an independent creator or a small company, you're starting to have access to these really great tools or really great cameras, but now you don't have access to something that the major studios have. And so that's what we're building at Third Summit, is we're going and leveraging enterprise level technology and making it available for the mainstream world of content creators and the creator economy.
Yeah, and how old is the creator economy? Like, how would you describe the creator economy? Because it's from my perspective, it's not that old. We're talking the last like 10 or 15 years, correct?
I would say it goes on beyond that. I mean, I think it's ever since anyone could create anything. I mean, I wouldn't necessarily, I think that there's only a label on it over the last couple of years because people are really good at branding things. Yeah. But I want to say it's become more accessible, right? You're starting to see massive brands, really big brands. Again, Allstate as an example. They took a big gamble on what was smaller at the time production company, because quite frankly, we were young, we were hungry, we could get the job done, and we could do it in a very quality way. I think that when you start to look at the creator economy, I'm looking at people that know how to tell a story, that do it well, that are reliable, that show up. And you don't need a team of 40 people anymore to do an interview like what we're doing right now. I mean, it's just 2 people, and you could set it up and you're off to the races.
Mm-hmm. And what are some of the ways that the companies that are a part of this collective that you're building in Third Summit, what are some of the ways that they are differentiating against some of the larger production and agencies that are out there?
We're really a supportive tool for any creator, whether you're an independent contractor, filmmaker, you're a college student, that wants to make a film on the side, all the way up to, it could be a Fortune 500, 100 client company that has a video department, right? Because you're starting to see that a lot more too. You're seeing less work going to the actual agencies, and you're starting to see these brands or companies bring that work in-house and internally, because they know that they can, quite frankly, do it a lot more efficient. And there's people that are talking the talk of that brand, that know it in and out every day. Because that equipment or that technology is now readily available, all of that wide gamut of people now have access to it, and that's how they're really starting to produce, and that's where the economy is really driving. Mm-hmm.
And the message that there's a couple of key messages that even as we build our business and our brand here at Altean, a small 10-person company, right, far from a Fortune 100 company, we have access to tools and resources that allow us to do certain digital brand promotion from within. And a lot of the messages that we've been hearing are keep it organic. Document the journey, and don't feel like everything has to be perfect. And so, those are some of our guiding principles as it pertains to building our brand and putting our story and our message out there, is that we don't necessarily have to have a large advertising or media agency, building, billboard or traditional print media for us, that we've got the tools that we need to tell our story and to tell it more rapidly, more authentically, that better fits a 10-person firm as opposed to trying to act like a 10,000 person firm. And are these some of the messages maybe that you think ring true in kind of brand development today?
Absolutely. And I mean, this is stuff that we were producing 10 years ago at my old company. I mean, it was brand reputation videos that we were producing for companies, really big companies. And honestly, the more authentic we got and the more we could convey the fact that we're telling the truth, those messages came off stronger than some of the, high gloss marketing material that was being produced, because it really resonates with people a lot more when they feel connected to a brand or when they feel like they can actually relate to somebody. And I remember, we were doing various campaigns for a lot of different companies where we would hone in on not only the people, but in a local community, right? A true grassroots approach, because it's like, wow, I know that person. They're literally in my backyard. I relate to them because they're my neighbor. And those types of messages come off so much better than sometimes, the real high gloss material, although it's fun to watch, right? Like I'm not going to deny that, like there are, ads that come out that it's just like, wow, that's clever. Or wow, that was a really great piece of work. I think that there's a balance there for a brand or a company. But again, going back to what you said, also what really hits true is the cost of producing content is so much lower today that you can start to create really great content as long as you're telling a good story, and you're doing it truthfully. You can do it every day. I mean, you can shoot it with your phone and edit it on your phone and then publish it out on any social media channel. And now you've hit an audience of potentially thousands of people with content that's very homegrown.
Yeah. Do you think that we've talked about this hypothesis that with now the increased supply of digital content that's just out there, right? Anybody can tell a story. Anybody can get on a Zoom and broadcast it. Not everybody's doing it, but a lot more people are doing it today than they were a couple of years ago. So the combination of that, as well as, let's call it the collective, almost like lowering of the quality and production demands, like lowering of the bar over particularly the last 18 months in COVID, where we're all raw and we're all authentic and we're all kind of going live and we're all turning Zoom on. Do you think that the combination of those two things almost puts a premium on some of the higher quality, like higher level, like glossy stuff, where that stuff starts to almost stand out more than it did 5 or 10 years ago, because everybody's kind of going with this low budget approach. And now all of a sudden the Super Bowl commercials are like 10x the value because they're the only commercials that people are watching.
Yeah, I mean, and look, I think that that's a whole nother conversation in itself, right? Where advertising is going and where commercials are going and so on. Sure. But I mean, in the last year, you literally saw people inviting you into their homes, right? It was, as you said, it was that raw approach. It was something where, you got to sit in somebody's living room as they were talking into a Zoom or into a, direct to camera. I mean, look at, a lot of the late night talk shows, they were all producing them from, little rooms or basements in their homes. And, they were doing it, and it was being done, and they were still entertaining us. And it was at a time when we really needed that as a population and as an economy. Also, you're keeping people working, you're keeping jobs alive. And I think that that's one of the great things that we've seen out of technology. I know that there's a lot of workers that were less fortunate, right? That their job required them to physically be somewhere. There's a lot of people that are fortunate. I was very fortunate in the sense that I was able to continue to do my job throughout COVID, in a sort of in my kitchen, basically every day, but growing a team. And I think that one of the things that I pride myself on in the rest of the team that works for me is the fact that there were people that, we had never even met each other. but yet we're having very deep conversations about how we're building this business and how we're growing it, because we had only started building our flagship product, Altean, at the very beginning of COVID. I mean, it was like 3 months before the world shut down is when we initially kicked off our first developers to really build our product out. And, you know, again, to be able to navigate throughout that time period, I will say, you know, it created a lot of fatigue, and I'm sure a lot of people relate to that. But I think that for myself, you know, it's that approach of, you know, knowing what you're going into ahead of time. I already had that mental you know, mindset of what I was about to embark on. Third Summit was sort of a cheeky play on that, just because I had done Everest Base Camp, I've done Kilimanjaro Summit, and I knew that building another business was going to be my third summit. And so that's kind of how I came up with the name for Third Summit. But again, you know, building out our first flagship product, Altean, it required a huge demand, not only mentally, but I feel physically, just because, you know, again, you are creating something almost from scratch, and you are building a team of people that are quite frankly all over the place, and they're scared as well, right? And I think that as a leader, to try and navigate through that was also a difficult chore in some senses, but it was also really rewarding in another sense, because I knew wholeheartedly that, you know, I was providing some stability for a group of people that were working for me.
And what were some of the things that you prioritized to take care of yourself over the course of the last 18 to 24 months?
You know, I think that it's whenever I have downtime, truly taking advantage of the downtime that I have, you know, being with relatives or you know, loved ones and family members and so on, and friends. You know, definitely did not exercise nearly as much as I wished I would have in the last year. But, you know, I think that it was just those little moments. You know, it was going for a walk. I was fortunate. I'm from Florida, so I went down to Florida at the very beginning sort of stages of the pandemic. And I was part of it was really to be around family members, but also to be able to have a place where I could get out and walk. And I remember, you know, there were some days where I just, you know, didn't do the traditional Zoom meeting, and I just took laps around my neighborhood, and, you know, just being able to walk outside and you know, be in some level of normalcy definitely helped out mentally for that.
You know, you touched a little bit on just your focus on building the team, and it sounds like that's maybe where you're at in your company's kind of life cycle, is like really getting the right people on the bus, you know, ensuring that they're not only supported and productive, but also just like really engaged in the work. Tell us about building a team. Like, what are maybe some of the things that have surprised you the most about the challenge of building a high performing team?
You know, I think it's difficult just based on the fact that, you know, right now we're in a time period where a lot of people do want to work from home. You know, you do definitely have some people that are still, you know, working in remote locations, and they're not necessarily back in New York. So our main office is in New York, and then we have people in Chicago, Denver, LA, and India. So it's sort of like we have a very diverse group of people. We have almost 30 employees today for the company. And, you know, I would say 80% of them I haven't ever met in person. So I think that as a little trick to that, you know, not to sway too far from your question, but I think a little trick to that is adding a little bit of personal touch to Zoom meetings every once in a while, because I think that what we do miss from those in-person settings is the fact that, you know, you don't talk about what you're watching on, you know, TV, or what your, you know, what your, you know, partner is doing, or so on. And I think that that's one of those areas that, you know, you miss a little bit from having video calls all day long, is you want to get in, you want to do your call, and then you want to pull back. So it's important to have those little human connections. And I think that's one of the things that I've been trying to do with the company all along.
Yeah, I love that. We have a couple of really good questions, and this maybe gets back a little bit to, you know, Third Summit and what you all are doing. So I'll start with one of them. How can companies outside of the creator economy better embrace freelancers, storytellers, and creatives? I think that's a phenomenal question.
Yeah, I mean, I think that one of the things that I've always been, you know, happy about in terms of reaching out to your network. You know, I think that when you go and you meet somebody that you like and you trust them, you know, establishing that trust is really hard, I think, for some people. But having a true vision also when you're engaging with these freelancers, because you know, sometimes they might be super focused or they might be really good at one thing. And when I was running my agency back in the day, you know, we had certain groups of people that were really great at automotive. So we pushed them off to our automotive clients. And then we had other people that were really great, just genuine storytellers. So we pushed them off to other projects that we knew could be a little bit more, you know, grassroots, homegrown approach. I think having a true vision before you engage with the freelancer or anyone in the creator economy, and I think this is with most you know, things in life, it's just have a true vision of what you really want to achieve from it. I think sometimes as running an ad agency for so many years, you almost have to you figure out how to translate what a client is really asking for or what they're trying to say.
Mm-hmm. And are there certain, you know, misconceptions about creators, freelancers that, you know, Third Summit is really focused on kind of blowing out of the water?
So, you know, one of our product Altean, and I think that it's important that I get into this. Altean is really geared towards, you know, obviously we keep saying the creator economy, but it's geared towards creating tools so that if you do want to engage with freelancers, you're a brand or you're a company that has content, let's say. Our hope is that you would store all of that content on Altean Cloud, because one of the biggest hurdles or issues that I always had when I was onboarding a client is their content was all over the place. So if they had a project for us, even just logos, you know, just storing logos in a single place, or when I was creating original content for those clients, we'd make sure that everything was really secure and stored properly, so that if that client ever said, hey, Matt, you know, that project XYZ, we need access to it because we hired another company or we have an internal group that wants to produce something based off of that content, we could easily transport it over to them. And, you know, years ago, we had to do it via FedEx, and you know, it was shipping hard drives back and forth and all over the place. And the sad thing is that's still how it's done today. I mean, I've been producing, you know, some content just for ourselves, and it's like, it's amazing that there hasn't been cloud access or availability to high grade storage that's secure to a lot of companies. So Altean Cloud is our flagship product right now that we've launched with about a month ago, and that's really where I would say that's a starting point for any company or brand when they want to engage with a freelancer, to just make sure that you have your content organized, have a really clear picture on what you're trying to achieve with them, because it helps the process just move along so much smoother.
That's so interesting. And again, I'm almost applying it to our small company, as opposed to engaging with a freelancer and having them kind of take their own inventory, take a look at the website, the YouTube channel, et cetera. You've built a place for this content that allows you to better align your objectives for a project with the actual creator.
Yeah, absolutely. And then, you know, again, if they go and shoot original content, they have a place to store it as well.
Yeah.
That you then have a way of reviewing and approving that content, and then leveraging it for future campaigns that you might have.
Mm-hmm. Love that. What are some of the what have some of your biggest challenges been? You know, as a co-founder, as a leader, as somebody who's built several successful businesses, you know, what have some of your biggest challenges been?
I think you know, right now, every entrepreneur or company or individual that I talk to, it's talent, right? There's such a shortage of talent. And you know, I think that the big hurdle that, you know, we face often is we're not one of the top tech companies that's well known in the world. You know, you name, you know, Google or Amazon or Twitter or Facebook or YouTube, or, you know, owned by Google. Like, you name any of those companies, and it's like they're such name brands, right? And so for a developer, even just graduating college, it's like, well, yeah, why wouldn't I want to go work for one of those companies? I think it's a rare breed of people, and they're very talented. But the ones that really want to take a chance at a young company or an up and coming company that they feel like they're really willing to take that gamble on a company like ours. I think that's probably been the biggest challenge. I think is recruiting talent.
Mm-hmm. So on the other side of that, talk to us a little bit about retaining talent. Is there anything specifically or different that you might be doing that allows you to retain the best talent?
I think that, again, it's cultivating those relationships right off the beginning, explaining to people, what they're about to get into, what we're embarking on. I think that one area that we're constantly doing is improving ourselves. As a company, we started out, I think we ended last year with 6 or 7 full-time people. Right now we have 30 full-time people. It's definitely, making sure that I'm personally making time, or other people in leadership are making time to really hear out other individuals within the company. And I think that it's also really important to listen to ideas that people might have, right? I think that that's where people really start to shine is if they have an idea, or how they want to improve process, or if they have an idea of how they want to improve the product, like taking that time to listen. I think that's a really critical step in retaining talent, because everyone really does truly have a voice, especially at this early stage of a company.
Has your vision for Third Summit, well, I'm sure the answer to this question is yes. Has your vision of Third Summit, shifted and changed over the last, 12 to 18 months with everything that's going on? And maybe the answer is no. Secondly, how clearly are you articulating, and how specifically are you articulating your vision to your team?
I'm very much a high level, executor. It's sort of the details, kind of fall down below with other people, but which are equally important. But I think that when it comes to sort of how we're building out the company, what the vision is, the great thing is we haven't swayed one bit from our original vision of what the company was. And that's because I spent a year thinking about it before I actually started building it. My co-founder is an amazing guy. And I think that that's also what I attribute, a lot of the success of this business to is, he's truly somebody that I can bounce things off of, but also, he's hard on me when I need somebody to sort of be hard on me. But, he's a great coach, but also I think that when we look at the overall vision, we haven't swayed from that. But when we really get into the talent and the people that we're working with, those people that are able to execute and think of, oh, well, Matt said I need X, and it's a very high level X. But there's 100 steps below that we need to take. Those are the true heroes of the company right now, and they're able to execute that sort of high level vision that I have.
Yeah, I love that. We're having those conversations every day as such a small company, and one that's changing, quarter over quarter. And I don't mean fundamentally changing. The vision is always there, but with smaller companies, comes a little bit more of a quicker change cycle. You have new people coming into the organization. The culture of the organization shifts. Over COVID, for us being a client services organization, our offerings have shifted. And, it's challenging sometimes as a business owner to be able to provide that right balance of specificity, as well as let's keep our eyes on the longer term prize. But I think your point is such a good one. The trust that you have in, your leaders to take the vision and make it a reality and put their own touch on it is the most important thing about scaling a business.
Yeah, I think what
Wonderful.
One of the big rewarding things for me is going into those meetings where they're going to review something with me on something that they've thought through for a month, and I get to see the design, or I get to see how it works, and it's really cool because sometimes it's like, wow, this is way better than I ever imagined that it would be, and it's really amazing, and I'm truly grateful to some of the people that are behind the scenes that are actually making this happen.
That is truly one of the most gratifying feelings as a business owner, particularly somebody who has held this this vision and this concept and even the business model so closely and so intimately for several years, to see even an aspect of your business pop up completely organically and completely without your direction, but yet supporting the vision is amazing. I mean, we just went through that over the last 4 months or so. We had an offering that was built from the ground up, really a brainchild of our team, definitely supporting our vision of building great client services and community amongst our clients. And it was not on the roadmap. It was not something that was handed top down, and it was a 10x better product than I could have ever thought of, right? So I'm connecting with you on that. I mean, that as a business owner, that's the best feeling in the world. So congrats on building a successful team. I mean, that's a pretty big jump to 30 plus employees, and not meeting most of them face to face is pretty unique.
Yeah. And I will say, I mean, COVID definitely in the last year, I think it probably set us back about 4 months from our original delivery of when we wanted our product to be pushed out. But I think that ultimately we're very fortunate that we're able to, persevere through that and ultimately I think make the product better. Because we weren't super rushed, even though we wanted to come out to market. But we're already seeing in just a month we've gained 1,500 users to the platform, and we're growing about 100 users every day. And I think that part of that is really a testament to the product, right? It's the first time that people are able to actually have enterprise grade tools at their disposal that they, quite frankly, would have to spend millions of dollars to have access to.
Yeah. Couldn't agree more. So we'll wrap things up here in a second. Last question from me, and then we're going to do a bit of a lightning round. What are some of your growth ambitions for Third Summit, and maybe what do you have, in the pipe?
Yeah, I mean, I think that it's just, continue to gain users, continue to build a quality product that people will want to continue to use.
Love it. Short and sweet. I love that. And again, sometimes it's easy to think that you need to come up with something more than what you exist to do every day, which is exactly what you just said. Gain more users, add more value, continue to, allow the market to give you that feedback. It's wonderful.
And I think adapt, right? I think that it's just continually adapt to the market. And we're looking forward to a conference in October where it really, I feel like will help shape a lot of our product roadmap for next year. And we have a really solid idea of what we're building for the next 6 months to a year. But I think that some of that is going to shift a little bit come October when we start to see what other companies and people are creating out there. And, I think the greatest advantage that we have as a company is the fact that, COVID has not only increased the amount of content that people are creating, but I think that it's also increased more awareness on the infrastructure for bandwidth for the telecommunications industry. And when you start to think about how people are installing more fiber or 5G is becoming more readily available, like those types of things are only going to help innovate and shape a lot of technology companies into the future. And we're certainly benefiting from that.
Yeah, that's great. Okay, quick lightning round, and then we will wrap things up. So a couple of fast questions that you can answer as briefly as you'd like. First, what are you totally geeking out about today? And it doesn't necessarily have to be anything with regards to work. It could be a show you're watching or a restaurant that you just tried. What's something you get really excited about today?
Camera quality. I think camera quality is just, it's such a weird thing to say, but I remember, I mean, we mentioned it, at the very beginning, in elementary school, we had VHS cameras, and right now I'm shooting on a 6K camera that was $2,500, and now they have 12K cameras that people are shooting on. I think that's just going to continue to improve quality and content indefinitely.
I couldn't agree with you more. I mean, I'm just fascinated with like what this can do and how this is starting to trump some of the more expensive consumer grade cameras out there. So camera quality, from one geek to another, I can relate to that. What's some of the content that you are really into today? What audiobooks are you listening to? Podcasts are you into? Video podcasts are you watching on a regular basis?
Just started masterclass. I think that learning about rockets is definitely an interest of mine. I've always been interested in space, so watching whether it's the masterclass on that, or Bob Iger is also somebody that I really look up to. I think he's an incredible CEO. Somebody that I would always one of those people that I think that I get more geeked out or starstruck when it comes to other entrepreneurs, as opposed to famous people, if you will. So Bob Iger, certainly somebody that I would love to have a lunch with, but just recently watched his masterclass as well. So that's kind of some of the things that I'm doing.
And when you say watch the masterclass, is it just pure like consumption, or is it one of these interactive courses where you're submitting things? Or is it more didactic?
Pure consumption.
You're learning from the
pure
company?
consumption. Last year, I actually, because we're branching out into a lot of AI technology within the company, and not being a super technical person, I decided to take a class at MIT on AI last year, and that was sort of my side project that I did throughout pandemic. And it was really amazing to sort of learn some of the advances that are coming into AI and all of its benefits, because I think that a lot of people think of it as a scary thing, but in some senses, it could be scary if it's applied in certain ways, but I think that it's also just advanced computing and creating something very quickly. And that's what I think that I take a lot of interest in as well right now.
So when you deepen your knowledge in rockets and space exploration, and you're one of the first 100 civilians to go to Mars, will you have to change the name of your company to Fourth Summit?
Yeah, or like Next Planet or something like that. Yeah,
that could be the fourth summit, Matt.
Yeah.
Well, real quick, what is the role? What role does learning play like in your leadership? Because not many CEOs, founders that are busy running the business every day are like really into learning, and I get the sense that you are. So what is that? Is that escapism for you, or is that an integral part of your your leadership ability?
Both, I think. I get so much energy from learning about what other people are doing. I also get I think that it's also just knowing that I'm not the only person facing certain hurdles, right? And it's obviously not directly correlated to something like a Bob Iger running Disney, but it's like he's also a human being, and he also has to overcome challenges. Or when you're looking at other people that are creating businesses and being able to talk to them. And I have a group of friends that are all entrepreneurs and very successful on their own. And, it's great when we get together, because I feel like we can really relate to each other. And I get so much energy out of that. And, I think that it's also just being truthful in areas that you might be having difficulty with, and how you can navigate it. And, and even just personal life, how do you break away from some of the business and put that aside for a few minutes without feeling like you're, neglecting your baby, if you will, by having a little bit of a personal life. And I think it's important to understand that balance.
Yeah, I couldn't agree with you more. When we started even just this community, our intent was really to bring leaders forward to serve, our clients and our first and second degree. And what we realized is it's doing that, but it's also allowing us, like my team, to really tap into people like yourself and start to relate on very common challenges that we're all going through, as well as, I think you said it, like draft off of other entrepreneurs' energy. Yeah. Like that is a very, very real thing. And I tell anybody who's thinking about starting a business, or anybody who's kind of just starting an entrepreneurial endeavor, is you've got to surround yourself with other people who are maybe not necessarily doing exactly what you want to do, but who are in it, who are just in it day to day. And so we've had folks come forward on this platform that run 100-year-old delis down the street, everybody to owners and leaders within Fortune 100s. And a lot of our problems are very much the same. And the ability to relate and the ability to draft off of each other is just, it's an incredible tool and an incredible way to learn. So Matt, first and foremost, I want to thank you for joining the Navigating Now community. I want to thank you for stepping into the conversation today. And personally and selfishly, I want to thank you for the energy that I was able to draft off of today. I learned a lot from our discussion. My team is probably realizing that a few of these questions that I threw in here were really so that I could learn a little bit more about, you and your leadership style and what's made you successful. And we hope that our audience and those tuning in have gotten a lot out of this. So thank you so much for joining.
No, I really appreciate the time. Thank you so much for having me.
Absolutely. So as we wrap up, again, we want to thank Matt for joining. Oh, Matt, how can people find you and Third Summit if they want to learn more?
thirdsummit.com or altean.io.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. As I mentioned, we are here every Thursdays afternoon at 3 o'clock. Next week, episode 55 is with a perennial leader for the Navigating Now Roundtable, Chris Oltmans. We're so excited to have Chris back at the table. I think this is Chris's third appearance, and he's one of these guests that started the pandemic with us, came about halfway through and did a little bit of a post-mortem, and now will be coming to us on, hopefully a new foundation of his leadership and his leadership style. So Chris will be with us next week. He's going to be talking about leadership and how that has evolved within his team. We're super excited for that conversation and for many, many more every Thursday at 3 o'clock. You can find out about this episode, rewatch this episode, as well as register to join future episodes at thatium.com/live. Matt, thank you again. Everybody tuning in, have a wonderful afternoon, and we will see you next week. So long.